Hi, yeah. I'd like one of the new Macs, please. But do you have it in blue? Oh wait. Also, could you possibly add an M4 Pro Mac Mini at all? No, that's no trouble. Listen, actually, while you're doing the list, could you add an M4 MacBook Pro? Hello, Santa. Hello. Should have used my iPhone. I'm kind of filming with that. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. Do subscribe because we have so much to talk about. Also, actually, from next Monday, lots to write about in the new 58 Keys writing workshop. But that's next week. This week, Apple has announced a series, really, of new Macs, all with the newest, fastest ever so far M4 processor. The iMac desktop all-in-one, the Mac Mini desktop all-in-nothing, really, and the MacBook Pro. Sound like a criticism of Mac Mini. I'll come to that. Taking the iMac as an example, the cheapest one that you could buy from the new range would cost the equivalent of nearly 3,000 pencils in the UK or over 14,000 pencils in the US. It's hardly a fair comparison, really. I mean, because to write with a pencil, you have to buy paper as well. So, but there's no denying that there are cheaper ways to write. There's no denying that any of the new Macs, you can't say they're less than expensive, except they are worth it. And actually also, just for once, there is a little nod to affordability, specifically this little nod. Apple used to always sell a version of each Mac that had too little storage space in it to be practical, and it looked like it did it just so that they could advertise a lower starting price. This time out, the prices are at least in line with what they were last time, but Apple has tended to increase things like the storage space you get for the lowest priced models. I mean, you could still do with more. Actually, the thing is, the more internal SSD storage your Mac has, the better. But if Apple's nicer about the least amount it includes, they're still going to go out and ask you to donate a limb in order to get any more. Since you and I are writers, though, but also I think writers who doubtlessly do more than solely write, take this as a kind of rule of thumb. The cheapest versions of the new Macs, they're okay. They're maybe even bordering on fine. But if you can afford it, go to the next level up, which is typically twice the storage. And if you can really afford it, buy as much storage space as you can. You can't go back with Apple. You can't go back to add storage later. So you have to make that decision now. And that decision you make now is one that you're going to have to live with. It's one that will also, separately, potentially, add a couple of years to the life of the device too. There is more to consider than storage, though. There's also the processor, the M4 thing, the RAM, the working memory. The very broad answer for both of those is that the defaults for these ones you get unless you elect to ask nicely for more and pay for more, they're fine. What needs more thought for writing and writers, I think, is the form of these new devices, the physical form. Comparing an all-in-one iMac that stays on your desk to a Mac Mini, can't think of an example there, and onto a MacBook Pro that you can carry around. There is actually already a 58 Keys linked in the description that covers buying any Mac at any time. But today, these are the new devices. Let's examine these from the perspective of you and I being two writers. So I mean, we're going to have to share the keyboard. The iMac. The disadvantage of the iMac is you can't really carry it around with you. Look at the quality of information you get here. There's no slipping an iMac into your holiday luggage, for instance, which you might or might not consider a problem. And actually anyone at all traveling with you will have far less trouble deciding which of those alternatives it is. The advantage, though, of an iMac, actually, the advantage for all desktop computers like the iMac are always better value than any laptop. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, or that you get a better Mac when it isn't squeezed into a laptop that needs, special miniaturized components. That even applies to the Mac Mini, although that tiny version, that already small one, is now tinier. But it especially applies to the iMac, I think, because I see the iMac as you're buying a great computer, a great one, but also getting a really great monitor kind of thrown in for free. Plus there are different colours on the iMac. I suppose that shouldn't make a difference, but it does to me. You're a writer. You are going to be looking at this thing for thousands of hours. It might as well have a nice colour and a brilliant screen, sort of thrown in for free. This time out, the iMac improves the FaceTime, or the selfie camera on the front, and it adds this new M4 processor. Just from a writing perspective, I was actually interested this time in how Apple sold this. They made a point for the first time, I think, of comparing the M4 to their own M1. Until now, what they've tended to do is compare their M series Apple Silicon Macs to the previous Intel-based ones. And of course, they've done that because Apple Silicon Macs just leave Intel ones behind. I mean, so much far behind. They even leave you wondering, how did you put up with an Intel Mac for so long, if you did? This week, okay, Apple did mention the Intel Macs, but mostly the comparisons, they were chiefly between the M1 and the M4 Macs. It feels as if they think they've got fast enough that they can do that. It feels like Intel models are being written out of history. Yeah, and I'm all right with that, really. As it happens, I didn't like the original iMac from 1990, whatever it was. I thought it was a bit bulbous and things, but since it went flat screen, since it's looking like it does now, I have become an absolute fan. The iMac is great, which makes it odd that the one I'm thinking about buying is not the iMac, but instead the M4 Mac Mini. The M4 Mac Mini does not have a screen built in, it does not have a keyboard, it doesn't have a mouse, it doesn't have a trackpad. I always think this is peculiar. In every other Mac, almost every Mac, maybe not the Mac Pro, Apple tries to sell you more RAM, more storage. Buy a keyboard, buy a mouse, have a trackpad as well. Not with the Mac Mini. You have to know that you've got to buy those things separately. Or I suppose you need to know that you've already got them from previous machines, because that's the benefit of it. Because it fails to come with the screens and whatever, the Mac Mini has always been the cheapest Mac. It's also always been the smallest, I think. And now with the new M4 design, it's even smaller. That's a real word, I've just decided. Smaller, it's not just a cute design. It is a benefit to simply not taking up so much desk space and being such a powerful machine. You can upgrade the Mac Mini to be just ludicrously powerful. But the last of Apple's major announcements this week is the MacBook Pro, the M4 MacBook Pro. I should say, as this edition, the 58 keys, first goes out, the MacBook Pro is by far the newest of these releases, and so actually I know the least about the new twiddles with it. But there's also the fact that I'm not paying as much attention because I have an M1 14-inch MacBook Pro already, and it is the best Mac I've ever had. For some reason, I wonder about upgrading my M1 Mac Mini. I haven't thought at all about upgrading this M1 MacBook Pro, possibly because of the cost. They're not cheap, are they? I need my current M1 MacBook Pro to last a good few more years before I look at it. But that's me, that's not you. Let's do you. This is about you. For writing, a new M4 MacBook Pro has the huge advantage that you can take it with you just about anywhere. But the MacBook Pro, it's overkill for solely writing. In fact, the existing MacBook Air might be a better price performance value for you. But again, that's just for writing, solely for writing. You're a writer, I'm a writer, but we both do more than solely write. So at the risk of sounding like I'm going to copping out of it, dodging a question, if you need an M4 MacBook Pro, I think you know that you do. And if you can afford it, well, I was going to say buy it anyway, whether you need it or not. And I know that sounds bad, but the thing is, the better the Mac you can get, the longer it will last. Even if you're not doing as well. I mean, if you're not doing video editing today, you might well be tomorrow. And you're kind of stuck with whatever Mac you've got. Well, stuck's the wrong word. It's not very helpful, I think, of me to say, basically, spend what you can. That sounds more like what Apple would say to you, isn't it? But it's worth spending a little extra now if you can to help out further down the line. Let's go back to me for an example of the kind of decision-making process, if you can call it that. I have keyboards and a trackpad, and I have a very wide monitor already. That's why I'm not tempted by the iMac, even though I do actually think, on balance, it is the best buy. And also, actually, just to roll out the MacBook Pro as well, the cost of the MacBook Pro is definitely the reason I'm not upgrading that, plus I like what I've got. But with the Mac Mini, I do think actually at this moment, overnight thinking about it, I might hang on for just a little bit, see what it is. But when I do buy, it's not going to be the cheapest Mac Mini. I'm not even actually going to follow my own advice and go for the next version up. Instead, as soon as I started looking through the online Apple store to see prices and things, it was the Mac Mini I went to. It was the M4 version, but it was the M4 Pro version. It was the 2 terabyte version instead of the base 256 gigabytes. Is that 8 times more storage? And actually, I haven't decided, but I'm hesitating over getting more RAM than the base model. All of which is because I do know that in the immediate, not the short term, the immediate term right now, this speed, that stuff, it will save me time doing the work that I am already doing. So that video editing I mentioned, I do audio editing as well, that kind of thing. And I know if you don't happen to pop off editing videos in between writing chapters, there is also this thing I said before: the better the Mac, the longer it will last. And actually, just adding to that, the greater trade-in value you will have in those years to come. And look at that. I haven't even said the words Apple Intelligence once. No. I haven't said it twice. Listen, do remember, please, separate thing here. The Wednesday 58 keys is for writers like you and me who use and write on any Mac, or on iPhones and iPads, or all of them. But from next Monday, there is the new second video, the 58 keys writing workshop, which is for everyone, for every writer, even ones who spend money buying thousands of pencils instead of Macs. I'm so keen for you to see these Monday workshop videos. I hope you like them. Let me know what you think, though. It's important. It's got to be a conversation. But for now, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself. Write more. And I'll see you soon.